Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us live today here. We are on Facebook and YouTube today, and we are talking about trees. So you're in the right place. We have about 8 people so far that are logged on. Janet Hartin is going to be our speaker today. Thank you, Janet, for joining us on this lovely, lovely Tuesday. No, Monday. Oh, no. It's already Monday. Oh, I'm already moved on to Tuesday, folks. This is great. All right, we have more people joining us, so thank you for coming. All right, we are having a half-hour talk today, so thank you very much for logging in. This is being recorded, so if you missed something, just so you know, you can go back and listen as many times as you need to. So this is Trees Come First under drought and water restrictions. We are here with our area environmental horticulturalist advisor, and this is Janet Hartin. She is an advisor in San Bernardino, Los Angeles, and Riverside counties. And if you think that's a lot, it is. Janet has been with the program with the University of California Ag and Natural Resources and the Cooperative Extension for, I believe she shared over 40 years. So we are going to be learning a lot from her and some of her research and ideas and ways to help keep our trees healthy. Janet, I'm going to pass it over to you now. Your screen is sharing. And people, if you have questions or comments, please go ahead and drop them in the comment section and just tell us where you're joining from. Janet, we are live and going across the state, and I'm going to pass it on over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lauren, Missy, Melissa, and especially those master gardeners that are on today that are taking time from your busy Mondays to join us for this discussion. I have a lot to say in a short amount of time, so there's several slides that I hope, whether it's just the PowerPoint and perhaps the recording, that you'll want to take a deeper dive into. But my PowerPoints are always available non-PDF'd, and I hope you'll continue to share those when you have talks for your master gardener groups, when you're thinking about expanding your trees for tomorrow outlook on getting some trees in the ground in our most vulnerable communities. Then please think about the slide set, contact me, and let's make this a statewide effort. Unfortunately, besides our moisture drought, California also has a tree drought. And while we still have about 9 million street trees in California, their density has decreased almost a third since 1988. Currently, as sad as it is, California cities have the lowest tree canopy per capita in the United States. Why is this happening? Well, as the picture on the right shows, we just don't have the street trees that we used to. There's 3 main reasons. One is when the economy is thriving, when we're really flowing, cities tend to believe, yes, we have the money to hire city and urban foresters. They tend to be very well experienced as far as not just the book learning and degrees, but also certified arborist, and that they have experience literally in the field with tree selection, placement, and long-term care. That's number one. Number two, we've had a lot of invasive species of pests and insects. We've got the invasive shot-hole borer that has wiped out populations of otherwise even native and healthy trees. And number three, not just street trees, but rear and side yard trees are declining because of drought and urban heat islands. And this is where you and the master gardener community really comes into play to ensuring that your helplines are widely promoted and available to help people get the right tree in the right place. As far as the drought goes, virtually 100% of California is now suffering at least moderate growth. Exceptional drought is now at about 16.6%. If there's a light at the end of the seamlessly dark long tunnel, compare that to 1 year ago, and we had almost 38% of the state experiencing exceptional drought. I think, though, that as we move forward, we really need to think of the drought as this is the wave of the future, Just like we no longer have fire seasons, we have perpetual issues with both drought and fire. But it's not too late. And I know that the beginning of this presentation sounds pretty dire and dim, but after that, the crescendo is going to be that you're very well placed to start recommending some of the trees that we're identifying. Just in the last 3 years, we found out are drought, heat, and pest resistant, and they're doing really, really well in what now are cooler climate zones that are expected to the tune of 1 to 2 sunset zones become warmer in the next few decades. We have a lot of research that we've been tracking. So those of you that want to take more time and read more about the UCANR research, both from the public policy perspective and also just research in the last 40 years with CEMIS coming into play and with how low can we go regarding minimum irrigation of landscape trees. So these are free, downloadable, very easy just to click these links at the bottom of this page. I'm hoping that you're well aware and using our University of California drought-related resources. Here's a list of some of the more popular ones. Also, a lot of advisors and specialists are very active. We have a lot of podcasts. We have a lot of blogs. California Institute for Water Resources is a fantastic website, not only with blogs and podcasts, but really interesting conversations. Many of them surround climate smart ag and other areas that day to day as a master gardener that you may not be as familiar with. So please check that out as well. I know I'm singing to the choir here. We're well aware of the benefits of urban trees, but it's important that we start the conversation with the public in this regard. I'm under the impression, after almost 40 years of research and extension in the area of trees, water use, and benefits, that the most important benefit of all is trees' ability to cool urban heat islands. Not only through providing shade, but through the process of transpiration, trees actively and very convincingly cool these urban heat islands. Trees also save energy and related costs. They clean the air, they remove dust, they absorb pollutants. If it weren't for trees and other living plants providing energy for our subsistence, we wouldn't be here. They absorb and store, which we call sequester, carbon dioxide, not as much as a forest of living trees would, but as trees age, that particular ecosystem benefit becomes more and more important. If you look at the picture here, you have a very, very dense tree full of foliage. And that's when the 25th, 30th year, we really are able to see these benefits of trees when it comes to sequestering carbon dioxide in their trunk and their root wood. Many other benefits. Feel free to perhaps just look at 3 or 4 of these, formulate presentations on them, and maybe offer a series of benefits of trees to the public based on just taking a few of these at a time in 20 or 30-minute presentations. The last 2 years, a large focus of my work has been on actually through infrared thermometers, measuring the ability of trees to cool both asphalt and other impervious as well as living surfaces. So I was really blown away by the ability that trees have to cool urban heat islands. An example would be that in late spring and summer, on a hot summer day, in inland valleys and desert areas, asphalt temperatures can be 165. We actually track some 171 degrees without the shade of a tree. Just through the shade of one well-selected, placed, and cared for tree, we can reduce those heat island impacts of those impervious surfaces by over 65 degrees, even along the coast, about 40 degrees. So just in a nutshell, some work I presented in December, virtually in Italy at an international conference, was that temperatures of unshaded black asphalt on the left can again be 45 to 68 degrees cooler if a tree is shading them. Temperatures of artificial turf can be as high as black asphalt. The third picture from the left, this was a lighter color concrete than it looks like in this picture, but it can be exceedingly hot as well. Whereas living ground covers, living turf, any kind of living plant surface, because of cooling from transpiration, is going to be much, much cooler. I don't know if you can see the face of that thermometer, but it says 100.6 degrees. This picture is really hard to look at, but it's important. Pet paws can burn in a minute on a 140 Fahrenheit surface, and that could be with an air temperature of only about 90 degrees and less than half a minute on a 160 surface. So together, it's really up to all of us to continue to educate stakeholders and decision makers regarding the benefits of living plants for cooling our urban heat islands. When I was taking a picture of the synthetic turf surface, my iPhone turned off and gave me this really ominous message. iPhone needs to cool down before you can use it. And to me, that's exactly what we need to be communicating to stakeholders. We need to cool down our urban heat islands so we can continue to use them. What's really linked to long-term ecosystem and societal benefits of trees is the fact that improper tree selection, location, and care reduces the average lifespan of our city trees 50 to 70%. I'd like you to copy and paste this. Just a second. That one had a recording. Just a second. All right.
That's okay. This is actually a great time. We had a question from Joanna, and Joanna asked, Janet, did you also measure the air temperature over these different surfaces?
We did. We didn't measure it, but we have those temperatures, and those can be cooled 12 to 18 degrees. And it depends on the height too, and it depends on the density and the air circulation.
Thank you.
Okay. So that was kind of a silver lining. Thanks for the question.
It was.
Thank you. This is great. So because this also could be almost a full course discussion, here's another paper that's free, downloadable, and it's called The Cost of Maintaining and Not Maintaining the Urban Forest, a review of the urban forestry and arboriculture literature. So this is what we want to take to our cities. This is what we want to share. Here's an example of a well-pruned tree. Look at the left of it. You see how it's not topped? This can increase the not only the longevity, but the health of the tree. Irrigation issues. This is familiar to us. This tree fell. There was about a 40-45 mile an hour wind gust, but you can see that the turf just almost looked like a piece of carpet or astroturf. And that pine tree that was about 28, 30 years old wasn't rooted deeply and otherwise would have been able to withstand that 40 to 45 mile an hour wind gust, but it just couldn't. So as we all know, but we need to continue to provide education to the public regarding that we should be irrigating our turf and ground covers separately from our trees. We want to keep the tree trunks dry. This situation is all too common. This picture I want to explain, and the central theme of this is a lot of people are taking out their turf That's fine if they're finished with it. Turf does belong, though, in our parks, on our school grounds, and certainly our dog runs because it is so cool. But to have wall-to-wall turf around our residences, the time has come to rethink that. The picture on the right of the fence is turf that's sprinkler irrigated that actually is keeping the tree on the left of that fence alive. This is an empty lot on the left. And so remind people that if they're removing their grass, that it could be a tree not only on their property, but perhaps on their neighbor's property that is alive because of that irrigation schedule. Even though it's not perfect for the tree you'd want to irrigate less often, but longer. But still, we have trees that are very, very requiring of neighboring water from turf. So when we remove turf, we do need to be a good neighbor and talk about the implications, if there are any, on the neighborhood trees. Here's some good examples. I think the bottom line is reminding people, especially when the ET rates are the highest in the summer, just using a soaker hose or a real cheap and effective way, hand watering with a hose in the drip line of the tree. Really, really important to keep our trees alive. Just doing that 3 to 4 times during the drought in the summer, this deep watering, can keep our trees alive. Also, we want to remind people that we have those green ties that are used for staking. We want to make sure that the tree trunks can flex, so we want to release that really tight guy wire and hopefully be able to wean them off of those stakes as the tree matures. We want to keep mulch away from the tree trunk. So that's the, if you will, the half glass that's half full. Here's the continuation of, let's get that glass 3/4 full and look at some trees that are doing really, really well, and what you can do as master gardeners to help advocate for them. We have studies at Davis, we have a study at SCREC, we have a study at UC Riverside, and this is in association with my UC peers, Jim Downer, Allison Berry, and Darren Haver, and our United States Forest Service collaborators. Recently retired Dr. Greg McPherson. We have Natalie, and we have Erica, who has just been a real joy to work with. We're looking at what we believe are heat, drought, and for the most part, pest-resistant trees. We vetted these by looking at a variety of climate trends and exposures. We looked at 3 models that predict over the next 75 years what California climates will be like. We coupled that with our urban heat islands, and with 95% of Californians now residing in cities, it's really, really important that we continue that model. So we looked at many, many habitat, physiological, and biological interactions to come up with the trees that we're looking at these 3 sites. We also consulted other experts. Some of you master gardeners I know we reached out to. And because it's so important that we increase and enhance our biodiversity, we actually looked at trees that currently make up less than 1% of a typical Southern California tree canopy. The trees going into the 6th year are doing fantastic. We turned the water completely off March 2020, if that rings a bell. That's because that was the official start of COVID, although it was a little sooner than we thought, actually, probably back to January. So going into the 3rd season with the water off, this is our Riverside plot. Trees are doing great, even during the drought. One thing that when I'm showing you some of these tree species, I want you to keep in mind is that we favor using the smaller and more specific sunset zones rather than USDA zones, except for in colder mountain climates of California. So here's examples of the zones. This is San Luis Obispo County. Just a few trees that are doing well. And then I want to end by showing you how to use some of the search engines that are reliable, reputable, and can really help you help the public take a deeper dive. The netleaf hackberry. I'm going to go quickly because this information is available on the PowerPoint slides. The maverick mesquite. This is one of my favorites, the pistachia red push. It's a shorter tree, power line friendly. Another one of my favorite has a weird name, Bubba. This is the latest desert willow. It has fewer pods than other desert willows. Beautiful tree. Again, these are all drought and heat tolerant, and for the most part, pest resistant as well. The Tecate cypress. So I wanted to end up just giving you, as of last night, some updated screenshots from 3 websites, the selecttree.calpoly.edu, the calscape.org, and our own UC WUCLs. So if you go to the first one, this will be the main page. You can, on the top left, search by name. If I search by name for Catalina cherry, hollyleaf cherry, or Prunus ilicifolio, these are the pictures. These are the fact sheets, as I call them. So I've blown these up. Hopefully you can read them. The information on the Cal Poly website will provide tree characteristics. That's really important. Talks about the growth rate. Talks about things such as flower color, of course, if it's deciduous or evergreen. Site conditions, imperative, you can see under sunset zones, 5 to 9, 12 to 24 for the Prunus ilicifolio. Looking at San Francisco Bay Area trees, instead of looking at tree name, I'm not entering anything on that perspective. I'm just looking below at tree characteristics. So I'm not going to delineate any height. So it's going to default 0 to 100 feet. I am under site conditions going to include 15, 16, and 17 as far as the Sunset Western Climate Zone. And on the right of that, I selected very low and low water use. Let's see what we come up with. 296 potential trees. Some of these we don't want to plant anymore. For instance, the ailanthus, which is a very invasive tree, will populate. You have to go to the fact sheet to realize its invasiveness. So just a caution out there that this will bring up some invasive species. They're noted, but not until you click on the thumbnail and read more about them. So here's Sunset Climate Zone search for coastal and inland areas of Los Angeles County. Again, the only selected criteria for water use was very low and low, so that's going to limit, of course. And when you see zones 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23, the results are going to be huge. 321 trees, that's because each of these trees is recommended for at least one of those zones, not all of the zones. So that makes a big difference to realize. One of my favorite sites, it's always great to start with native plants, but to remember that some of our natives no longer are doing well because of our urban heat islands. This is Calscape. This is the main page. On the upper right, you can go to advanced search. This is what I've done here for Sacramento. I selected tree, underwater requirements, extremely low, very low, or low. Here's other criteria. I will caution you that these websites take a lot of maintenance and a lot of time. So it's hard to make sure that the nurseries on this site that are listed are up to date. Some have gone out of business, some of it's COVID related. There's newer nurseries that haven't yet been populated. So take that with a grain of salt there. Flower, color, season, fragrance. Here's why we need to diversify. Let's start with natives, but let's look at adding non-invasive but non-native trees. And the studies that I showed you in concert with my UC colleagues and the United States Forest Service are looking at those kinds of trees to supplement our native plant palette because of the reality of these trees not necessarily fitting the entire plant palette bill. For instance, native to Sacramento, we only have 8 trees that will grow well in extremely low, very low, or low water. Even looking at all of California, we're limited to 12 trees if we have a height limitation, which would be power line friendly, of 30 feet. This website gets millions. I want to say 6 or 8 million hits a year. And yes, it's a great website. This is our UC website, WUCLs. But the reason that it gets so many hits is because it's deemed by the Department of Water Resources to be the plant water requirement categories that when you're getting approval for a new plant palette and a new landscape design, that water districts require that you use. So that's the beauty of the WUCL site. The downside of WUCLs is that it takes about 24 sunset zones in California and combines them into only 6. So these are really, really large areas that are lumped together across a lot of sunset climate zones. That's the downside. So I am searching under South Inland Valley. You can just go down the drop down and find your city. This is a search in Redlands, which I didn't know that it was categorized by Region 4 in WUCLs, but it does that automatically. I selected very low water using species, and on the bottom right, trees. And there are matching plants, 163. And remember, the Atlantis is also going to be one of the results, and that's a tree we want to stay away from. I want to end by saying that I've been working with a lot of County Master Gardener programs, and thank you for reaching out to help address the lack of tree canopy cover in our underserved communities. So please email me. We may have some possibilities I've been talking to Missy about through some funding in the next few years. This is just an example of a quadrant in San Bernardino, very near to the location of our former cooperative extension office, where you see it's really dismal. On the right, the percent canopy cover is 0 to 11%. On the left, you see that the percentile of poverty is 99. If you look at pulmonary and cardiovascular issues, they're some of the state's highest. So I'm not saying this is cause and effect, but it tends to trend because of a lower tax base in certain cities and neighborhoods. So please reach out. This is a group of San Bernardino County Master Gardeners that are working with California Climate Action Fellows, with Inland Empire Resource Conservation District, ESRI, City of Redlands, University of Redlands. And so far, there's over 700 trees in these vulnerable communities that in the last couple of years that coming together, these groups have been able to plant. Thank you. I'm here. If you have any questions, I'll turn this back to Lauren.
Great. Thank you so much, Janet. We're going to leave your PowerPoint up for a second just so people can pull down your email address. I believe we also put it in the chat for people. So write it down, take a picture, take a screenshot, whatever you need to do. Reminder that this is live and recorded, and it's posted on Facebook and YouTube. And Janet, I'm going to remove your screen share, and it's just you and me on the screen now. So if you want to, feel free to shut down your PowerPoint and you can see you and me talking and the screen. So Janet, I think this might be an easy question for you because I've heard you talk about ficus before, but we have a question from Leilani saying that I have a very large, beautiful tree in my front yard. People tell me it's a ficus and it is not good to have. What's your response for that?
Thanks for the question, Lalani. Ficus in the right place are all right trees, and in some cases, excellent trees. I think that what gives a ficus a bad rap are a couple things. One is that they're not street and sidewalk friendly. So you see a lot of buckled sidewalks and a lot of upheaval as a result. But in our parks, on our school grounds, they are the lollipop, really, really dense tree. So it comes back to right plant and right place.
Thank you, Janet. That is a perfect, it's like the perfect line, the right plant, right place. And this is a great, because we also have Bianca who wants to know, can you advise on a good privacy screening hedge? And Bianca, we don't know where you live, right plant, right place kind of thing. We'd love to encourage you to get in contact with your local UC Master Gardener volunteers and program, and they can talk to you a little bit about what you're trying to achieve, what area you live in, and recommend a good privacy screening hedge. Janet, we're talking about trees, right? We're talking about watering trees, preserving trees, planting the right tree. Is now a good time to plant a tree?
Excellent question. And yes. So we wanted to push through the drought of the summer. We'd want to push through the drought, whether it's in fall and winter, but we need to get the trees in the ground. So we want to avoid summer because until trees are mature, and that means, the first several years, we need to really pay attention. And particularly the first season, they need to be wet a few times a week because they have a really small root system. And then after the first season, then you can start to sort of wean them off of that, water less often, but for longer. And then when they're mature, if you've followed this regime and if they're deeply rooted, then they're mining deep water, and you can literally keep them alive with 3 to 4 deep waterings during the drought of the summer. And that's the position that we want for our trees to be able to have the the benefit of growing toward.
Yeah. And so a lot of us are under water restrictions. And since trees are so important to our urban heat island, letting go of other plants or things that you can easily replace and watering trees is really important just to keep our urban heat islands cool. So this is a great question. It's from Susan. How do you answer those who think that trees are fire hazards and should be cut down?
Susan, that is a great question. And it makes me cringe, but it is really a great question. I think that we do have, whether it's through CAL FIRE or United States Forest Service, whatever websites that you can direct people to that talk about defensible space. That's the bottom line. If you're in the urban forest interface, then really those are prescriptives, and we need to not only respect those boundaries, but if we don't, then we can be cited for them. So trees can be a fire hazard. They can be a fire ladder, but it comes back to the right tree, the right location. One other comment along those lines, we all love our organic wood chip mulch. Fantastic. But again, in fire prone areas, then you may want to look more toward inorganic pebbles, decomposed granite mulches because of the flammability.
great. I have up on screen here right now how to connect with the UC Master Gardener program, especially for our person who asked about a privacy screen hedge. This is for you. Janet, I just want to say thank you so much. I have used Select a Tree and I picked Oklahoma Redbud for my area. So I've definitely used Select a Tree, and all of those websites that you mentioned, they're open to the public for you to use at 3 a.m., 10 a.m., 1 in the afternoon. If you're looking for a tree and going and needing to look at all of that kind of detail, it's the perfect place to go. Select a Tree for me really helped narrow down the work I wanted to do, what I actually needed in my area. So Select a Tree for me really helped me plant some better trees in my backyard. I'd removed some that I knew weren't going to be doing well in the future and planted these. And I'm very, very happy with how Select a Tree helped me do that.
I'm
Uh,
very happy to hear that. And they
yeah,
update that site regularly. I think that's the go-to site for care. So if you use the other two that I recommended, then great starting point, but then slap, copy and paste the name, the common or scientific back into Select Tree, because that's really the care guides that I think
yeah.
are the gold.
It's definitely helped me. All right, Janet, I put up your email address again on the screen for people to connect with. And that is all the time we have today. I am Lauren Snowden. I'm the statewide training coordinator for the UC Master Gardener program. And we are thankful to have Janet Hartin, an area horticultural advisor from San Bernardino, Los Angeles, and Riverside. Yes, all three. I got them right. Thank you so much, Janet. We really appreciate you being here. We're going to go ahead and take off for the day. Good luck out there with your trees. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Lauren. Thanks, everybody. Have a
Bye.
great day. Bye bye.